Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This talk is to step back a bit and have a look at the big picture of ShearWave elastography, where we come from, where we are going. For those who are already familiar with elastography, you know that elastography purpose is to make the manual palpation enter the digital world by providing a way to measure tissue stiffness in a reliable, reproducible, and quantitative manner. This is the goal of elastography. If you want to perform elastography, you need three components. One is a way to vibrate the body. Two is a way to catch a movie of the body inside the body while the vibration is occurring. Three is to have kind of a brain or processing to analyze your camera, what your camera gives you, to provide information on tissue stiffness. Now you have different way to vibrate, different kind of source of vibration, different kind of camera, usually ultrasound or MRI, different kind of processing. All that makes that if you combine all the possibilities, you end up with almost 36 different types of elastography. So this is kind of a great playground for the physicist, but it may appear kind of a mess for the physician. So it's good to take a step back and look where we come from. And we come from the first elastography technique that was commercially available, was train elastography. This was in early 2000s. So now the principle is really to continue manual palpation, but instead of palpating directly with your hand, you took the probe and were palpating with the hand and the probe in your hand. And the system was displaying the deformation induced by your palpation on the screen in a color-coded manner. So the camera was ultrasound, and the analysis is qualitative because you don't have a direct estimation, quantitative estimation of tissue stiffness. At the same period, for those who are familiar with liver elastography, it was introduced the FibroScan product, who was dedicated for a pathologist and was using an external vibrator to induce vibration in the tissue. And the device was tracking this wave and displaying one number in kilopascal that you can see here, which has a global estimation of tissue stiffness, of liver stiffness. So this was a quantitative imaging, a quantitative assessment, but not an image. And we have pioneered the quantitative elasticity imaging mode with ShearWave elastography in 2008. So it's a way really to feel what is inside your body from the outside. The advantage of the technique is that first you don't need to generate any palpation. It's the system itself that does the palpation. It gives you a quantitative image in kilopascal. It's real time, and it has millimetric resolution. How it works? So the palpation is done with ultrasound. We send beams that will create little vibration that you can see on this movie. So this is a shear wave that's propagated inside the body. And we use an ultra-fast camera, ultrasound camera, to catch the propagation very finely of this shear wave during its propagation inside the body. The camera is ultra-fast. The movie I'm showing you is 6,000 images per second. And the analysis is quantitative. We are measuring the speed. You can feel that the speed of the shear wave here is dependent on the tissue stiffness, and we can measure the shear wave speed and provide a map of shear wave speed here that gives you directly access to elasticity and tissue stiffness. So this is the shear wave technology. Since then, so since 2010, I would say, all the manufacturers has built their own way to perform elastography. So you have a patchwork of different elastography techniques. each one with each way to generate shear wave, its way to analyze, its way to capture the shear wave. So you have a bunch of different techniques. You can have even manufacturers that propose 3 or 4 different elastography techniques in the same product. So you have this patchwork, and this may raise you some questions, of course. First, which one should I pick? Is there a better one? Are they hard to learn? Are they hard to use? Can we trust the result? And ultimately, why should I enter in this mess if there are so many techniques? So I would like to convince you today that the answer to many questions is our ShearWave elastography technique. First, because of its performance. Second, because of its convenience. Third, because of its proven clinical value. And fourth, because of its recognition. And this is just not words. I will explain you why for each one of these elements. First, the performance. The performance is linked to 2 key technologies that we have been developing. You have to understand that when you generate a shear wave with ultrasound automatically, what you induce in the body is something extremely weak. If you can. What you see here is displacements that are less than 1 microns. This is 10 times smaller than a red blood cell. So it's really teeny. And if you want to assess and measure shear wave, you have access to a very small region of interest, and your estimation is really not robust. This is if you do one source of shear wave. Now, if we do, instead of creating one source, you create a moving source, and this moving source is moving at a supersonic speed, then you have something way different. You create what we call a shear wave bang, like a sonic bang for supersonic airplanes. And the shear wave that you generate is much higher in amplitude and propagates through the whole region of interest. And what is smart here is that you don't need to put more acoustic energy than on the left. You rely on the supersonic regime to do the job for you. And you have access to something much wider. So the supersonic regime is the more efficient way to generate a shear wave with ultrasound inside a body. This is coupled with a technology that we introduced with our System Explorer, which is ultra-fast imaging. We have introduced Explorer with a technological shift, which is to switch the brain of the ultrasound machine from hardware components to software. And we put all the brain in the CPU. This allows to multiply by 1,000 the number of frames that you can achieve per second. So we move from 50 hertz to almost 20,000 hertz image per second. And this allows us to follow precisely the propagation of the shear wave inside the body. If I do the same at 1,000 hertz, you can see that we can see it, but we are missing almost all the information. If I do the map, I miss the inclusion because I don't have enough frame rate. And I cannot not even show you a movie at 50 hertz because I would show you nothing. The wave is already gone when I start to image. So this is to make you understand that this ultra-fast camera is a key component to catch correctly the shear wave propagation when we induce it in the medium. And the coupling of these two technologies, supersonic generation and ultra-fast imaging, gives you the most efficient way to do shear wave elastography. So you have something that is real-time. This is a real-time shear wave movie on a muscle that you contract on a tendon. So you see as a function of the contraction that you see the shear wave mass becomes stiffer and stiffer and stiffer. So you can scan like you are used to scan. This is quantitative and real-time, as you can see. And the size of interest, you can size it as large as you want. Doing shear wave with conventional technology, this is the result. It's a very small area of interest where you can perform the estimation, and it's not real time. If you want to achieve a bigger area, you need to patch and patch and patch and patch and repeat all these experiments many times to reconstruct an image. So this is the key technology that is behind, and this is the key technology that gives you the best performance. Another benefit of having that is that you have access to 3D elastography, because we are able to do real time and to swap with a wobble probe. And you can see also two different probes with 3D imaging, one for the breast, one for the prostate. So this is the basic technology, and if I would say the basic principle and technology is the same since we introduced that mode in 2008. It didn't change. Where we work a lot is to provide you something that is extremely convenient and easy to use. Here is an example of the workflow in the liver. You scan in real time during 3 seconds. The signal is stable, you freeze, and you measure, and you're done. You don't need to do 10 times the same measurements and spend time doing ShearWave. In 3 seconds, you have your measurements, you have your results, and the number of measurements that we've done behind in the machine is far more than 10 with this. So it gives you a speed in your measurement and acquisition that is very high. The second thing that we worked out is a new mode that we introduced two years ago, which is called the TriView. So TriView gives you all the information our ultrasound system can give you within one mode. So you have access to the morphology with B mode, to the elasticity with ShearWave, and to the vascularization with our plane wave ultrasensitive color flow imaging mode. So you have the three information here in one real-time mode. I'm sharing an example courtesy of Dr. Machotra on TriView on a kidney. Thank you for the movie. So you have a kidney here with ShearWave elastography real time, and we will switch to TriView, and you will see that in real time you can have access to the microvascularization of the kidney while having also the ShearWave on the right. Again, a new tool to improve your workflow and improve the number of information that you can catch with a real-time mode. Third aspect where we worked a lot, we gained a lot of experience, and we worked a lot on developing ShearWave elastography for all our probes and all the application you need. We have ShearWave on elastography on probes ranging from 2 to 22 megahertz, with application going from the liver to the prostate, to the breast, to the scrotum, MSK, and even for researcher, skin and small animals for very high frequency. So this is something that you cannot find elsewhere. Usually it's available on 1 or 2 transducer or application. Here we have the full offering of all our probe and application with ShearWave elastography. The third point I would like to raise is the proven clinical value, and I will not spend time on it because you have 2 nice talks from Dr. Shamings and Professor Lucy Darms showing the value of it in breast and liver. But thanks to your work, we have more than 400 publications today on ShearWave elastography, 100 on breast, more than 100 on liver, and 100 on MSK, and a lot more on different applications. So this is the highest clinical exposure that we can have on an elastography mode. And all this work has resulted in something that we are happy to share today, is that we had the clearance from FDA a few weeks ago on having Explorer being clear for liver disease patient management as an indication for use. So it means that all the technology we are proposing on the left here, among which ShearWave elastography, are cleared for steatosis and fibrosis screening, for steatosis and fibrosis staging, for management of patients with complications, for screening of liver nodules, and for diagnostic of liver cancer. All these steps of liver disease patient management are cleared, and we are the only system on the market to have this clearance. And this is thanks to the clinical work that has been done so far during the last 10 years on liver ShearWave elastography. A few words on where elastography is going. Of course, it will improve with ultrasound and electronics technology. The more the system is performant, the more elastography is sensitive, is going far, is fast. It will also improve with probe technology. All that will move ShearWave elastography to better performance. It will also open new avenues. For example, a faster ShearWave, a faster frame rate could open the breast screening market. It could open assessment of tissue elasticity dynamically. This is an example done by our researcher teams on a heart, on cheap heart, where you can see that we can assess tissue elasticity as a function of time during one heart cycle. So you have almost 20 measurements of tissue elasticity during the heart cycle. So we are able to measure elasticity at systole and elasticity as diastole. And each one of this information gives you a different clinical information. The systolic elasticity is linked to heart contractility, and the diastolic elasticity can detect necrosis. So you see that having a look at dynamic ShearWave elastography brings you new ways to understand the organs. It will also, we will also open new biomarkers. For example, if we go a bit deeper in the ShearWave analysis, we can have access not only to the ShearWave speed globally, but to the ShearWave speed at each frequency of the frequency range of the ShearWave. And this is what is done here on the slope. You see for each frequency the ShearWave velocity. And if you have a slope here, it means that it's linked to the attenuation of the ShearWave in the tissue. So you have access to what we call the viscosity or the attenuation of ShearWave, and you can measure that quantitatively and display it. So we provide new information and new biomarkers for disease assessment. The last thing I would like to show you is what we call assessment of stiffening. If you have used ShearWave elastography, one thing that you know is that you need to avoid compression when you scan. Why? Because when you compress tissue, it's something that is natural in the body, the tissue becomes stiffer. So if you want to have reproducible results with ShearWave, you need to have a constant compression across the experiments. Now we can use this property to extract new information. For those who like Russian mathematics, this is what is called the third order Landau coefficient, the A here, which we can call basically not the stiffness, but the stiffening of the tissue, how fast it becomes stiff under compression. And this is a prototype that I'm showing you on our system that will display in real time ShearWave elastography, but also in real time strain elastography. So we activate the strain elastography real time, and you have both information, and you use both information to deduce this map, which is a map of A, which is the map of stiffening. So you have on the top the stiffness and down the stiffening. And this is a new way to analyze tissue. An example here on, this is an in vitro experiment, so it's a piece of liver inside a phantom. The elasticity is almost constant between the liver and the tissue surrounding. But if you look at stiffening, then it's clearly appearing that the liver is becoming stiffer in a fastest way than the surrounding tissue. So it's a complementary information to tissue elasticity, and this is something that is under investigation, and Dr. Shamings will show you a few clinical images in a few moments. So just to close up the loop, if we look at the evolution of elastography as a function of time, we had seen different phases. The first one was the pioneering phase, where we introduced the mode. It was early 2000. Then we had the resistant phase. Many manufacturers didn't believe in elastography. They said it will not work, it will not take. So they were explaining why it will not work. And at some point in the mid-2010, there had been a great expansion, and you had a high number of different techniques that arrive on the market. And today we are in the convergence phase, where everybody is, there is still the strain elastography, of course, but everybody is trying to have his own way to perform ShearWave elastography. And of course, I hope that after this talk, you are convinced that you should pick up the reference, because you don't have enough money to spend to buy a bad elastography. You wouldn't do that for color or B mode. Don't do that for ShearWave. Choose the best one. Thank you.